to me, the whole kind of idea of cinema is that it lays on a foundation of human connection. So I think the more subjective it is, the more beautiful it is. And as we enter this phase where AI and the idea of artificial intelligence perhaps overtaking human thought is becoming more of a reality, a closer reality. It begets the question, what really makes us human? And I think it's making me fall in love with the human experience more and more, the imperfections, the warts, all of it, because I think the imperfections and the idiosyncrasies are what make us human.
I grew up masquerading as an upper caste member, and it was very daunting. It created a sense of innate fear and insecurity. You're always watching over your back.
We have an absolute treat of a session ahead of us, which brings us back to that discussion about creativity. And we really want to focus here on two absolutely outstanding, extraordinary artists and what they bring to the experience, the lived experience of being human, how that feeds into human art and human creativity, and will that be something that will hold its own, or will this machine intelligence that we've been talking about be able to catch up with that? Ladies and gentlemen, to discuss the codes of human art, please welcome on stage Ishaan Khatter and Neeraj Ghaywan. You know, the whole day we've been discussing this dynamic tension between AI and human beings and creativity and all of that. So I don't know if you managed to even get a glimpse of the film, but we were looking at the kind of ingredients of human creativity that really makes it unique, you know, or what we think. We'd love to hear what you think. And I wanted to start with you, Neeraj. You know, your film Homebound and Masaan have been absolutely, they're absolute gems, you know. But what has been the key things that have really framed your artistic sensibility? Do talk to us a little bit about that. You know, is it personal experience? Is it others' work? What has gone into creating your sensibility?
Actually, sensibility is a combination of, I guess, worldview, your equation with the world, your value systems. I think that's what has primarily shaped how I look at cinema, look at the world. Homebound story began 4 years back when this article, this New York Times essay that was sent to me by my producer,
Will you speak a little closer into me?
So he had sent this article to me, and it had the story of Mohammad Sayyub and Amrit Kumar, one of them Muslim, one of them Dalit, and they were on the journey way back to their homes. I'm not giving out spoilers for those who haven't seen the film. Now, this story really affected me when I read it. And I thought that it's apart from being a very moving story, it's also a platform to mount a lot of things that we want to talk about when we say India. First of all, I feel that from mainstream spaces, especially Hindi cinema, villages are getting absent. About 60 to 70% of our population is agrarian. They live in villages, but we don't talk of them. And especially people who live on the margins, they are mostly neglected. So it was a humble attempt to actually, and also, you know, all of us staying in urban cities here, we think of them, we speak of them in numbers. We always mention them in statistics. That is sort of to ease our own guilt of not holding ourselves accountable to what is happening to them. This was an attempt to humanize their story, to probably pick two people out of these migrants and go back and see their entire lifetime and maybe then feel how it would be. I mean, would you like me to speak in terms of the
Yeah, I was
AI aspect of it, or?
Yeah, no, I'm going to come back to you. I
Okay.
want to just draw Ishaan into it. Ishaan, you know, when I was inviting you to come here, and I said that you are an absolutely incandescent actor, but you are entering into this whole world at a time when really AI is in the shadow of, you know, it's in the shadows. You're able to write up an actor by just prompting it. You're able to create creatures that don't exist. You know, one is really able to kind of bypass a lot of the longer processes of creativity. So in the face of that, what do you think is unique about being a human actor? You know, what is unique about being Ishaan Khatter? What has gone into making you an artist? If you were to pick 2 or 3 things, you know, which has really shaped you as an artist, what would that be?
I promised myself to be as neutral and hopeful as I could. But as you asked me that question, I could feel this impending sense of doom. I was like, Jesus, someone's just going to write my name and there goes my job. And I'm sure a lot of people feel that way in the environment that we're in today. But I think, for me at least personally, what I can say, perhaps I may be statistically inaccurate, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, I think it's a very interesting time because when I remember about 10, 12 years ago when we started getting privy to the internet and the many ways in which it can connect people, it felt so exciting because it was making the world a smaller place, and we get the sense of that even today. Is, you know, everything is blending into each other, and you could be sitting in a corner somewhere in a rural area in India and connect with somebody in a city in Europe, and gain from their experiences. So in that sense, it's making the world a smaller place. But I get the sense that also in some ways we are growing more and more isolated, and the experience is making us kind of disconnect with humans. And to me, the whole kind of idea of cinema is that it lays on a foundation of human connection. So I think the more subjective it is, the more beautiful it is. And as we enter this phase where AI and the idea of artificial intelligence perhaps overtaking human thought is becoming more of a reality, a closer reality. It begets the question, what really makes us human? And I think it's making me fall in love with the human experience more and more, the imperfections, the warts, all of it, because I think the imperfections and the idiosyncrasies are what make us human. And even in my work as an actor, I seek to find those moments. I mean, call it divine intervention, call it what you may, but a lot of actors will tell you their best moments are when they lose kind of sense of their environment, or you're really alive in a moment, and that happens from a deep sense of immersion and from losing self-consciousness, and that's what takes time to practice. You practice the craft so that you can be blind to all of the technical aspects. So I think for me, the imperfections is where the beauty lies, and it's making me kind of seek that more and more. I want to make more mistakes, rather than chasing perfection, rather than chasing an idea of a perfect take. I want to push the idea of where can I take this? How many other ways are there to interpret a certain moment? And that's what makes it interesting for me, rather than, just kind of hitting the right beats.
It's so fascinating you said that. We had Shankar Mahadevan earlier, and he literally talked about that you may be at point A and you have to go to point B, but even in terms of music, that there are so many pathways to it, and that's really where that uniqueness comes, that which one did you choose, what happy accident. They're principles of music, of course. But, as I said, we'd made this film, and there were these phrases we used, which I thought really makes the creativity of humans unique. And that is this whole messy canvas of truths and half-truths and happy accidents and, resurgences, and you retreat and you arrive. It's this whole dynamic. And some years ago when Javed Saab was here, he dissed AI because he said, oh, AI will never achieve anything because it doesn't have a wounded childhood, And I laughed and I said, well, it has 8 billion wounded childhoods to draw from. But I do want to come back to you both in your personal life journeys. So Neeraj, coming to you, that would there be an aspect of your childhood, wounded or otherwise, or would there be happy accidents in terms of you intended to do something, someone else came into your life, something which was unplanned, which ended up bringing you to this space where you're one of the most respected directors in the country? Did your accidents of your birth or your caste or your childhood, any of that, do share that with us.
Shoma, earlier you just mentioned about an equation, and fundamentally this is what I believe about tech and AI and cinema, is that cinema, at least an art form, is not empirical, because it's not that A plus B or whatever the equation is will give a desired output. Because in cinema or in art forms, your A is also variable, B is also variable, everything is a variable, and so is the output. So you cannot quantify, you cannot codify something that can only be felt. And with that principal thought that I feel, there are moments that, like you rightly said, that were in my subconscious, and I didn't even realize when they came on screens. For instance, when we were, I grew up in Hyderabad. And
Sorry?
I grew up in Hyderabad. And my dad was an agriculture scientist. And we used to live in this house, which is also similar to what they show in the film. It had those slabs and rakes on it, and they would fall off. And we finally had that house, we were building that house. And all four of us siblings would fight कि हमको पानी डालना है slab पे, you know, there's roof पे पानी डालना है. And every time we'd go, and I remember my dad like pipe से पानी डाल रहे हैं, and that image stuck in my head. And it recreated in the film, and I realized it much later. And I once saw it, I remember I've seeing it in Marrakech or somewhere, and it hit me that, yeah, this image is exactly that, because why does it feel familiar? So, like that, many of my instances of my own identity as a Dalit person and what I've gone through, my own fears and what all I've endured, I guess I can put them in to cinema because I've lived them. And I cannot tell a machine how to do that. I guess.
Yeah, you know, you've lived them, and did that bring a, you know, because your work has a kind of, you know, there's a kind of, it's very humane, it's, you know, it's not judgmental, but it's very reflective, you know, and there's a kind of moral, anger is the wrong word, but there's a kind of moral anger to what the world should be and where it's at, you know. So at which point did you begin to feel agency? Like you said, your experience as a Dalit person was one, but at which point, talking about happy accidents, did you begin to feel that you have agency to change the trajectory that was decided for you by your caste? Is there any kind of important incident where that happened?
It came from a point of that, okay, I always speak that in retrospect because I grew up masquerading as an upper caste member. And it was very daunting. It created a sense of innate fear and insecurity. You're always watching over your back. You feel the sense of abandonment that any point your friends are going to check out as soon as they figure out, they spot who you are. And that fear creates a deep imposter. And it took a while for me to get over it and to come into my own. So those fears and that same thing I put it in the character of Chandan and how he overcomes this insecurity, overcomes this imposter syndrome. It's also not just me, to be honest. Have some water. Thank you. So it's not just me, actually, with the journey of Homebound. It was also, there was this thought that we meant about that we are not only talking about the story of two people that I mentioned earlier. So oddly, we also went a little bit AI into this before everyone gets shocked. What I wanted to do was that create these characters from the sum of experiences of many Shoaibs and many Chandans that exist in our country. So me and the boys, we stayed in villages, we went to UP, to Barabanki, and over there we met many people and we understood what went on their lives and how do they overcome, what are their dreams, what are their, you know, simplest things, that what do they like to eat. So all of those things have been put in to create these characters. So it's not just a experience, my own experience, but it's an accumulative experience of many people who are on the margins.
So Ishaan, I want to bring you in here, you know, that he's talked about that lived experience and fear from his childhood and of masquerading as an upper caste boy and of being discovered. You've fleetingly spoken about the fact that you did have some, you know, like a wounded childhood because there was a divorce, your parents were divorced, you grew up in a mixed religion family, you know, there were absent parental figures in your life, and you said that that really made you grow up. Talk to us about that experience, you know, like if you were to immerse yourself from that and draw that into your art, what did that childhood yield for you, you know?
No, I mean, if I may correct you, there were definitely not absent parental figures because then I would be raising myself. Definitely didn't do that. Credit where it's due, and I have learned a lot from both my parents. But again, yes, that question does bring us back to the personal, you know, and I think creativity comes from a very personal place. You know, the best art that you see, in many ways, is deeply personal. And I think it's very fascinating because earlier when you were speaking about how AI has 8 billion traumatic childhoods, or rather many more perhaps, because the 8 billion are just people that are populating the earth right now. But
Right. Yeah, it has all of history.
there's so much literature and history. So, but that is still theoretical information, and what I think is really cool and interesting to ponder on is the human experience it's literally experience before theory, and that's the whole point of experience something. We know sensation before we know the theoretical understanding of it, like we know an emotion before we understand hormones, for example. And that is what leads us to understanding. That's the questions is what leads us there. And I think by default that becomes, a lived experience that is so much richer, for me, I think the idea of being all-encompassing or all-knowing is a bit bleak because it takes away purpose from life. So I think the search, the question, is what kind of leads us to make art. Again, it's the human condition, and it's the expression of that. And there is where you find your subjective voice, your personal voice. If you're truthfully expressing yourself, there may be, out of 10 people, there might be 3 people that will relate very deeply to what you're saying. There might be 4 people that find it fascinating. There might be 3 other people that find it absurd or like totally repulsive. But that's what makes art what it is for me, at least, and that's what's fascinating about it. It's the choices. As an actor, when you start studying the craft, one of the things you become aware of is choices, and like I said, how many different ways you can interpret even a single emotion, and it's the specificity of it that is fascinating. Like Neeraj's experience, he has experienced masquerading as an upper caste. So when you see the scene, I don't know how many of you have seen Homebound, but there's a scene where my co-actor Vishal Jethwa is in this recruitment office with this gentleman who is slowly dehumanizing him, by kind of
cuts.
asking him his caste and realizing that he is from a lower caste and therefore asserting his power. And it's like a horror scene, it's like a horror movie. And I think that comes from being in that seat himself, the tension he was able to create. At the same time, he is able to generate emotion out of people from talking about biryani. I mean, AI kya jane biryani ka swad hai. That's what makes it fascinating to me, that he would even choose that, Right. So yeah, those are the things that I feel are kind of irreplaceable, and the unpredictability is what fascinates me. And so far, at least, I would say I haven't experienced that directly. At least I would say I haven't experienced that from an AI piece of art yet.
We humans itself can't fully understand another person's lived experience. We only can get close to it. We can't fully immerse ourselves into it. We can empathize, we can come close to it. That's what our attempt was when we were trying to meet so many people. So how do you expect a machine, how do you expect AI to train a lived experience? I feel that is something that I feel is...
But I do want to ask both of you, that if you could, as you move and things get, maybe the capital is hard to come by, and you could type up an Ishaan Khatter, and make Ishaan Khatter do exactly what you want him to do in What's Your Mind, in terms of playing out a scene exactly the way you want to by writing it up, and then boom, it comes to life. Would you be tempted at all to do it?
So
Ishaan is looking at you with very intent eyes right now.
You better say this right.
So firstly, I'm an engineer, and
He's thinking about it, Ishaan.
I left that life behind. I was quite a geek. Now I left all that, came to cinema to find human stories. Why would I go back and train a machine how to be like Ishaan and learn myself how to train it, like get into tech. I mean, that's the first reason why I left all of it behind. So I wouldn't ever do that. And I don't think it's even ethical to do that because, see, I'll give you an example of while on shooting. There's a scene on the bridge that happens towards the end of the film. It's a very emotional scene. And we both were quite prepared and quite petrified of that scene throughout the shooting. It was a pivotal scene of the film. Now, during that time, we both had that chemistry of like sometimes we don't even use words. The way he would emote that and the way he would understand what I'm trying to get at. Like one time I said, we got the take. He could see it in my eyes that he's hunting for more. He said, Neeraj, let's do it another day. Let's do it another day. Why? Because he sensed it. A machine can't read that. So that's exactly what I'm trying to say is that human interaction can never be replicable. That emotion can never be replicable. You can never get rid of a slop.
Well, I want both of you to tell us, when you picked Ishaan, what did you see in him that really made him click for you as an actor? Was it a performance? Was it a kind of hidden potency in him? What made you pick him?
I think it's the mystery. Because...
it's a mystery you picked him, or is
no,
he...
I like the mystery in him because he's not predictable. And that's what I like about him because, I was doing endless workshops and he wanted to absorb all of it and let spontaneity take its course. Like I think a while back he said about how he wants to see, and that's exactly how I think great art comes into being. And I think that's his best quality, that he wouldn't even surprise me because like that scene itself is an example that how he did it was something that even I was surprised. It was literally a spiritual experience to be on set during that scene. So I think his greatest asset is that he has so much inside of him that I think even he's oblivious of it.
That's beautifully put.
If I may just say, I think what's really fascinating and I think really what distinguishes, and there's no good or bad, there's no right or wrong, but what distinguishes, I think, the human experience from at least the, artificial intelligence that we know today is even if you prompt a ChatGPT and you ask it what would be the one thing from a human experience you could borrow or you could experience, they'll say to feel love, And it is literally the privilege of being able to feel that is uniquely, for sentient beings, for living beings. And I think what we do is an exercise in that, you go to the cinemas to feel something, and sometimes you disconnect from your own experience and you're able to empathize with somebody else's life. And there's like a magic there, there is something in the space in between that is so beautiful. I mean, it transports you. And that's what human connection is, And without being too romanticized about it or without, getting a bit like woo-woo about it, I think it's really cool because sometimes even we don't know, like as actors, we don't know where the inspiration is coming from. Sometimes you can say it's the subconscious of, obviously that's what the first interpretation, and it is. But sometimes you do things that feel like an out-of-body experience, like you act out of almost like a generational experience. When you see great cinema, great art, great, music, it comes from a generational lived experience almost. It's like there's a coding in our cells, and we should celebrate that. And just for a second to give the power back to us humans, we created AI, so while it may overtake human thought, I think the human experience is something we will always have, and we should celebrate that, and I think indulge in that.
Will you share with us, again, that was really, really beautifully put, but will you share with us an experience when you really have been in that kind of flow? Any scene in your own work or when you've kind of felt that that's what's happened to another actor? Or where you've even felt it channeled intergenerationally, like you just said, share with us an actual experience like that.
there are little tricks that you know that you see. I mean, in my experience, I did something called the Perfect Couple recently, where I recently watched. I got to work alongside Nicole Kidman, and I saw her once turn a scene on its head. She totally flipped it on its head. You know, she was meant to be reacting very quietly and observantly to a situation, and she did one take the way it was written to be. And then in another, she just completely flipped it on its head and screamed. And it may have seemed out of context at the time, but it was so brilliant because it changed what everybody else was doing. And I saw an interview of hers later that she spoke of that she comes from the school of Stanley Kubrick, who said, famously, he said that nobody is allowed to reject an idea unless you try it on set. And I think that is what creativity really is. And that's what pushes me even more now to kind of take a chance and take choices and see where it takes you. You know, if something doesn't work, you flip it back. But I think the scene that he mentioned, I had a similar experience. He was doing these long kind of takes where we would roll them for minutes on end, and it was about a 3-page monologue, and there were a lot of ad-libs and improvs in it. And at some point, I think you might remember, it was kind of the end of the scene, and I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen the film, but it's kind of the end of the scene, and my character is giving up on Vishal's character because he's kind of, you know, losing his, he's slipping away. And I think I just picked him up and tried to resuscitate him by hitting him on the back. And it was not scripted, it was not something I had planned. It happened in that one take and never happened again. And it made it to the film, but I would have ruined it if I planned that, you know, and I don't know where it came from. I think it came from sincerely living that experience over the months we were shooting the film, and everything that we had heard of the real incident, everything that we had heard from people we were researching from, and their lived experiences, and my interaction with Neeraj, and the feeling that we shared for authentically, sincerely representing this story of these people. I think it just came out of something, it's ephemeral, like I don't know where it came from. But like I said, if I planned it, I would have botched it. You know, so you just need to let it happen. You're a vessel, and it happens through you, you know. And I think there's a humility in that almost. You know, if I were too self-conscious and self-aware, I would try and do the right thing, not the thing that was meant to happen.
Yeah, that openness, yeah. You know, when we were chatting, you said that there are some aspects of Neeraj that people don't really know, that he's, you know, he has this particular persona that one knows, and then there's
he can rock the dance floor. That's one of them.
Okay,
Don't let his looks deceive you.
That one I'm going to come to. So I was in fact going to ask you for an insight about him that none of us know. So one is the rocking the dance floor, which I'm going to make you both do, but also an insight about him that maybe publicly people don't know, you know, because you've been so intimately working with him. What is something about him that surprised you?
The thing that immediately comes to mind, I don't think you'd be happy if I say.
Don't tell on me.
You're saying you better say this right.
I'll give you a little bit of trivia to give you a little masala and sweeten it up before I tell you what's really in my heart. Well, he's got dad jokes, for one. He's got major dad jokes. Right. A lot of puns, a lot of things you would not imagine coming from the auteur, you know, the sensible, thinking, masterful filmmaker that we know Neeraj to be. A lot of times between these emotionally intense scenes we're doing, he's breaking the tension by saying the most tone-deaf things. But I think that also sometimes he does deliberately. And he also has a bit of a Valley Girl persona inside him, by the way.
He has it?
Yeah, he gets very sassy sometimes. You know, he's just like, are you wearing those shoes? Really? Like, he could totally flip into that when he decides to. But what I think is really beautiful about him is that his conviction towards what he does comes from a very deep-rooted place inside him. His art comes from his gut, and it's deeply felt, and it's not just something that is kind of a facade for the world to see, you know, like I can confirm this for you is, I've seen the way that he lives his life. He's a very simple man and by choice. And he really does, he's extremely involved, socially conscious, socially aware, and that too is a choice, you know, and that's not something that everybody feels it necessary to indulge in. And he does that in his own life outside of his cinema. I know the sense of responsibility and involvement he feels towards the subjects of the characters in his films, the people that he borrows from. I know his involvement in their lives outside the film, which he will never publicize. Those are the things that I think make him the artist that he is, because he draws from the person that he is, and he's a beautiful person.
You know, but I have to tease you on that, because you were saying that you were going to say something that he may not like. If this is the stuff you say when you don't like, you know, what was there not to like in this?
No, he won't like it if I start telling you, for example, sorry, I'm doing it, but like he will auction off his, you know, very prestigious awards that he won from Cannes Film Festival. I mean, this may sound like a kind of a bait, you know, like it's not, but he would never say it himself, but he'll auction it off so he can pay for oxygen cylinders for migrants in the pandemic, you know. That's how selfless he is, you know, so it's not for show, you know, it's not like, oh, I care about these people only in cinema. He really does, and that's why his art is so potent, and that's why you feel it when you watch it.
You know, I mean, I am nowhere close to finishing the conversation, but if you don't have a hard stop, we can continue. But if you have a hard stop, then I do not want to give up on both of you rocking
You have already probably made me miss my flight, so...
Oh, if you missed it, then it's good. Can we just miss your flight?
Unless you can send someone off to do that, you know, if you've seen 3 Idiots, that Raju character fakes a heart attack so he can stop the flight. Right. So if you can do that for me, then we can keep talking.
Okay. Well, just a minute more and then I'm going to make you dance. You know, again, from both of you, I have been... I have
think
been
he's already
asking,
missed his flight.
He is going to miss his flight? Okay, then I won't ask you any more things. I'll just make you dance, you know. But, okay, just literally in 30 seconds, you did say, and I just want one little bit personal insight. You've been talking about, you know, the principles of who you are and your art, but just in terms of an anecdotal insight, you said that you were changed, you know, you grew up because of your childhood. Tell us about a little bit about who you were before, and then when you went through a childhood which was not conventional, how did that change you? You know, how did that make you different from, say, the young people around you? And I'm going to come to the same question to you.
Well, who I was before, that's definitely not a 30-second answer. My mother tells me that I was always a very happy and spirited child. And all the images from my childhood seem to confirm that. I'm always like, in all the pictures. But I think I don't have any regrets or resentment or any sob stories about the childhood I had. I did have an eventful childhood. A lot of people do. But it taught me a lot. And I think in many ways it made me kind of grow up a little before my time. But it also made me grateful for the good that I did have in my life. And so I kind of, as a result of that, trained myself to see the glass half full. And the graph of my life so far has been a slow upward climb. And I think it makes me, it allows me to feel motivated every time there's a small win, you know, and I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of my mother who raised me as a single mother, despite the odds, despite the fact that she is an artist herself, and I know how big a part of her that is. You know, all mothers experience a great deal of self-sacrifice. And I think in any position they may be, and I think the more I grow up, the more I understand that, not only from the point of view of a son, but from the point of view of a friend, a partner, you know, a brother-in-law. And the more I interact with women in my life, I realize how intricate that experience is. I mean, something as simple as a woman's hormonal cycle being so drastically different from a man's. We have a 24-hour cycle. They have like, weekly cycles. It makes you understand the emotional, roller coaster better. I mean, we have our own experience and, women have theirs. So I think for better or for worse, the experience I had growing up, and I think my closeness with my mother, my open channel of conversation with her allowed me to see the world in more perspectives than just one. Perhaps right now it's a binary conversation, male and female, but I think it opened me up to be the artist that I am, and I think that's why I'm interested in growing from other people's perspectives rather than kind of being rigid about my own and holding on to that. So yeah, I think my childhood was quite eclectic and unconventional, and the one thing I'm proud of and I'm lucky for is I was able to travel and start the ball rolling of traveling early on, and that again opened up my mind a lot. So yeah, those are some of the things that I think make me the explorer and adventurer that I am today. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Ishaan. Oh my God, I'm nowhere done. Okay, I only have 2 minutes left before you really have. So,
Neeraj being classic dad, Neeraj is like, do you want to see if they can reschedule your flight? I don't think this is the place to have that conversation. Figure it out backstage.
okay, while I wanted you both to dance to Main Parwana, but you can. You're going to.
He was just joking. Trust me, I can't.
Then, if you don't dance, you'll have to tell us
I'm
something.
going to cheer for him.
You just hear
I'm
for
going
him.
to clap for him and I'm going to cheer for him while he dances.
So,
Okay,
because
after he dances, we'll let him go, and then I have one last question.
yeah, normally what I would do is I would be shy and I'd be like, oh no, really, I can't dance and don't put me on the spot. But we don't have time for that spiel, so just play the music. Let's just.
Yes.
Okay, let's give that.
You'll do one step with me. Come on.
Don't let me do it.
Okay, let's play it. Thank you very, very, very much. Okay, yes. Play that again.
This one is for me. It's not even for anyone else. Come. I just want to see Neeraj bhai doing this Shami Kapoor ada once. Just give me a main par. Can you cue the music?
Cue the music. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Ishaan. Ladies and gentlemen, Ishaan Khatter and Neeraj Ghaywan. Thank you. Neeraj, please. Thank you. You really have to run. Thank you very much. Thank you.